Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
This is Dr. David Perrodin, and I want to thank you as we begin another journey into school and community safety. If you're looking for industrial safety expert, Appalachian State University professor Dr. Timothy Ludwig, please visit www.safety-doc.com. Again, that's Dr. Timothy Ludwig at www.safety-doc.com. Brett Favre died. Well, not really. On our way out to South Dakota, we stopped in Austin, Minnesota. And done getting gas, about to pull out, there was a hearse with the flashing lights and everybody on with their lights behind. So, a funeral. And I told my daughters, I said, oh, yeah, this is Brett Favre's funeral. You know, Brett Favre used to play for Minnesota. And so they were a little confused. They were like, when did this happen? They're not big sports fans, but each of them wore a Brett Favre jersey at one time. And I said, no, he did not die, but somebody did. So we need to wait for this funeral to pass. So Brett Favre, I think, is okay. And wishing him well if he is not. I've been out biking kind of like crazy lately. I'll talk about that. But one of the things I do when I bike is I like to bike through cemeteries if they have, paved ways to do that. Some of the country cemeteries, no, that's not possible. It wouldn't be respectful to do that. But if there's actual, roads to go through. And in the community I live in, there are 3 substantial cemeteries, and there's the original cemetery in town, which continues to have new burials. Actually, all of the cemeteries, I believe, have new burials, but this one has a number of gravestones from the mid-1800s. So it's really the settlers. And actually, the town I live in, there was a military fort here from 1828 to 1845 active, and outside of town, there's another small military cemetery, and that actually has at least one, could be 2, soldiers who had fought in the Revolutionary War. Wow. So anyway, I'm frustrated with cemeteries and the whole funeral process. It seems that as I get older, the less I'm tolerant of these things, these institutions. And not that I'm disrespectful of a cemetery, not at all, but I just don't see it as making sense. I'm gonna get into that, but when I go through a cemetery, it's really for the historical aspect, to look at some of the designs on the gravestones, like from the mid-1800s, and the commentary that's put on them. And now they have the stones where they actually have like color photos under some kind of, clear resin, that so you can see, an image of the person. I think that's a little creepy. I don't know. I mean, even if it's just, there's one gravestone I go past when I bike, and it's facing out toward the road. It was a girl, I believe like 20 years old or something like that, and she has her picture. So I personally wouldn't want that. And over time, again, these are one of those things, everybody thinks perpetual care and all of that with a cemetery, but the reality is that doesn't happen. I mean, what do you see with the old gravestones in any cemetery? I mean, I was out in Boston, in the famous cemeteries, and the gravestones are all severely weathered. So you can't, unless you're etching, you can't really make out what's on it. They're tilted or they've cracked because of the freezing and thawing and or else they've been vandalized. But I'm saying just under normal wear and tear of weather and environment, they only last so long. And virtually all stones start to tilt, as the ground settles and stuff like that. And so, why do we do these things? I thought about that when I was in Deadwood, South Dakota, and went to the Mount Moriah Cemetery where Wild Bill Hickok is, and others. And, it's a novelty of history. It really is. They charge you $2 to get in. And, so you're charged to go into a cemetery. Interesting. But it does have a very neat historical sense to it. Very steep. I think I talked about that before. Calamity Jane is there. So I think it shows an insight into history, and especially if you know the stories of some of these people. But let's face it, in most cemeteries, you have no idea. And the families have relocated, they moved away, and just a lot of these stones get forgotten. This whole thought of perpetual care, that you're paying for perpetual care, that your gravestone will be taken care of forever. Well, no, and we just know that's not practical. It's not really going to happen. So I was in college when my grandfather died. He had a sudden heart attack. He was out deer hunting, what he loved to do, very active up until the moment he died. He was out boating in summers and, with his wife, my grandmother, who died, I think only 2 weeks after that, really probably of a broken heart. But yeah, my grandfather building things. I shared a story once of how my parents, when I was in high school, went to Europe for maybe 5-6 weeks, and it was just me and my brother bolted. I don't know where he went. Checked in a few times, but it was basically me. It was kind of like risky business, and it worked out pretty well. But I spent a lot of my days going up to my grandfather's and building, doubling the size of his garage from a 1-stall to a 2-stall garage. So we kind of did that. That was just a great bonding experience. I don't know what I did for work that summer. I worked all of my summers. Maybe I had more of a schedule that was toward the nights or something like that. I think I did actually work mostly nights that summer. But anyway, I'm an adult, and my grandfather passes away of this heart attack. And looking back now, there are some things about that really they're really crazy to think about. One is that the mortician, we were all gathered around, the grandkids and the immediate family, and the mortician said, you can write a note to your grandfather, and we'll place it in his interior suit pocket, and that will be with him forever. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a nice sentiment, and also completely insane, right? I mean, let's just think about how nuts that is. Okay, and I guess from my perspective, like when I do pass, and I've been very open about this, I just don't want any type of ceremony, a cremation. So looking back now, the mortician is saying, I can put this note in your grandfather's pocket. I'm thinking what I should have wrote on the note is, hey, grandfather, if you're able to read this, you're in big trouble because you are sealed in a weather-resistant casket, which is also sealed within a weather-resistant vault. So instead of just putting a note in a pocket, I need a note. I need probably like a utility knife and a set of magician's keys available to him to give him a fighting chance, But it's just insane, that type of stuff to me now. I'm just so pragmatic. It just doesn't make sense. And this whole thing too of the sealed casket. And I remember the mortician saying, with this specific type of casket and seal and the whole, we could actually, if the body was exhumed in 10 years, with just a little bit of work, you could actually do another presentation of the body, another showing. And I'm thinking, yikes, like how insane is that? And what is the goal? I mean, how long do we want to preserve our bodies in that type of state, in that Lenin type of perpetuality? But I don't know. And of course, in the moment, people are very emotional, and a lot of that just seems to be standard practice and makes sense. But when you step back and think about it, I mean, I'm just putting myself in that role. I mean, I don't want any of that. I don't. So I go through these cemeteries, and I feel bad for these people, where the stones are all weathered and nobody's tending to them and they've fallen over and stuff like that. Because at the time that they passed, or the time that their families invested in these things, it was probably a pretty considerable amount of money for what they were making, or had available. But, they never, of course, thought that was going to happen. And yeah, it's sad, but I think there's also this realism in it that, to try to outsmart Mother Nature and to try to achieve this perpetual memory and all of these monuments and stuff just doesn't make sense, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So anyway, Brett Favre is still okay. Still loved in Green Bay, probably loved in Austin, Minnesota also. It's been a long time since I actually saw a funeral with a hearse, a funeral procession. There was that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer yelled, "Hey, you got your lights on?" And Jerry's like, "That's a funeral procession." So, and how everybody had their lights on too. Like it would take, I think lights are they're automatically on, but not all of the cars, but like every car had its lights on. So just, wow. I biked 140 miles this week in the past 7 days, 140 miles. So I'm kind of back into my groove. The first time out biking, really hit up with some hard muscle cramps, the quads, hamstrings, body wasn't used to that. Probably wasn't properly hydrated for it. It was pretty warm and humid. And then the second time out was better. And today it was 90 and humid. So the heat index, I think, was like 94 or 96. So the first 15 miles was a little bit rough. I did, I think, 53 miles today. But after that, I was great. It felt great. So I'm definitely ready now to do a longer trek, which for me is that 72 to 75, maybe 80 mile range. I've got a couple of those mapped out, but I do need it to get back down maybe closer to 80 and with some normal humidity. But things went really well today. I had some older, although it had not expired. It was some Stacker and some B vitamin, it kind of like a 5-hour energy. I also have those, but I was trying to use up these older ones, which hadn't expired, of these Stackers and stuff. And they were really you drink them and you could instantly feel that in your stomach, just this kind of fist in your gut. So I tossed those things. Stuck with the 5-hour energy. Those have been fine. But I always take out a Ziploc bag and put in some goldfish of the cracker goldfish, the whole wheat. And then I pour in some Swedish fish, the candy, the jelly type candy. And then have a container of beef jerky and 5-hour energy and a sack of nuts, assorted nuts. And, there's a rationale for all of that. So I can quickly get carbs out of the crackers. The 5-hour energy, is given a jolt of B vitamins. It takes a while to digest the Swedish fish because it is, more of that gummy, chewy type candy versus like if you ate a bag of Skittles, like boom, be flying for like 15 minutes crazy and then you'd crash. And I read that in a couple biking forums, like the bikers were saying Swedish fish, and I've done that for a couple of years. Works great. And then the beef jerky, I don't do a whole bunch of it, but I do some of it. And of course that's protein that brings in sodium. I think it helps with the whole electrolytes. Yeah, biking has been awesome. Saw many deer, which is unusual for this time of year. It's typically, typically a lot of birds, but and snakes. Like I haven't seen a snake yet. Usually you see snakes sunning themselves out on the road. Haven't seen snakes, but have seen a lot of deer. And today saw several turkeys and little baby turkeys. So turkeys hanging all around. Cool stuff. Feeling great. And I was out, I ran 4 nights this week also. So really getting back into the state of fitness. It was 2014 when I biked probably, every other day, and combined that with some pretty serious weightlifting and was in great shape. So I'm trying to get back and also bench pressed, when I got back. Poured 5 gallons of water on my, bushes and shrubs today also. So was hauling that around, 8 pounds per gallon, so 40 pounds. So getting a little bit of workout there. So the other day, entire family, all 4 of us, wife and I, and my daughters, we cleaned the garage. So it was last summer when our garage was pretty much occupied by the construction crew because we had the bathroom overhaul, completely gutted and rebuilt our main bathroom. And then in spring, we had the second bathroom, the same thing done. And the garage was taken up for all of the equipment to cut the porcelain tiles and all of that. So all of this fine dust, all of this fine porcelain dust had kind of settled on everything. So we took everything out and washed stuff off, wiped everything down, and also went through like all of the kids' toys and stuff like that and condensed that down got rid of like a third, made sure all of the basketballs, footballs, things like that were pumped up. But yeah, took the wet dry vac, sucked everything, up in the corners and the spider webs and all of that stuff. So the garage is looking absolutely great. And that's a project I wanted to do for a while. So everyone, my 7-year-old, her job was to wash off all of the toys. So she had a big bucket. So making sure, all of the dust was off of all of those. My older daughter was kind of the go-between and moving some stuff. And, my wife was moving and cleaning off some of the stuff. And I was, moving some of the bigger things and really getting in there with the wet, dry vac into the corners and getting up on the ladder and getting up above and wiping off the rails for the garage door and all of that. But, so there was a lot of stuff like you didn't notice until you actually started to do this, just how much of that, powder had settled in there. So I feel really great because I worked on that garage floor and got that all set, and the garage is just in really, really good shape now. And when it was all done, here's the benefit too. I have a leaf blower now, a gas powered leaf blower. So once we had things cleared out, I could take the leaf blower and just go all around the garage into the corners and everything and kick up the dust or leaves that had worked in behind stuff and all of that stuff out into the driveway and sweep it up and put it in the garbage can. Worked great.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
Today, we are talking, today's show title is In Harm's Way, My Ire with Intentional Bad Decision Makers. And this really gets started with this Thailand rescue of the kids in the cave with their, 25-year-old coach. This doesn't sit well with me. And I've gone into discussion threads, and almost all of the comments are, we're praying for them. You know, we wish them well, and here's not the time to judge and all of that. Okay, I get that. And of course, I want them to get out safe, and it seems like that's happening. But this really doesn't sit well with me. And there are a few other things that have happened recently where people have made what I would say is just intentional. They've been informed of the consequences and warned not to do these things, and just have gone ahead and have done them. And in doing these things, like the 25-year-old coach or assistant coach, who apparently used to be a monk, who takes these kids down into this cave, all of these things are putting so many people in harm's way. And we know in the rescue, one person died, one of the Thai Navy SEALs. But you put so many people in harm's way, and you're occupying resources then. And granted, there should be attempts to save people, even if they've gotten themselves into these situations. I'm not saying that you have some kind of decision-making process. Well, it's like, you knowingly went in there, so we're not going to save you. That's not the way we work as humans. But the fact is, you then remove those resources from being available to other people. And, the fact is, this isn't even a money thing. This isn't saying, well, this rescue has a financial cost when it's all done, like this Thai rescue, let's say, of like $15 million of how many people it occupied over how many days and whatever. Let's just say something like that. Well, society and money spent on crazy, frivolous stuff all the time. A basketball player's contract for $140 million or something, or whatever. So, it's not a money thing. I don't have an issue with the money part of this, but when you put other people at risk because you have made an informed, then intentional bad decision. So let's talk about this Thai rescue. So obviously, what is it? 12 boys in the coach, or 13 boys in the coach are trapped. So this whole thing starts because it's a ritual. Okay. It's a ritual for the coach to get the players down into this cave, which even under the best circumstances is very difficult and narrow and hard to navigate. I went through Wind Cave in South Dakota near Hot Springs just a few weeks ago when we were on vacation. And, that's with a guide with the Park Service and all of that. And and that's designed, for basically the tourist to go through. They have steps and stuff like that. But I mean, there are points where you need to get yourself narrow and duck down and things like that to get through. I mean, you don't have to climb through anything, but I'm just thinking this is so crazy that the coach took them down there. Basically, this was a rite of passage. Okay. It was a rite of passage that you had to keep going into the cave. This is before the rains really, hit and forced them to go further into the cave to the area where they were found, but they were going to go in and etch their names on the wall of this cave. And this was this rite of passage. And granted, I think that rites of passage are very important, especially for young men. So I think, or spending some time going into the cave, or at least having some ceremony, some recognition in this cave, is okay, But here's the deal: a large warning sign was at the cave's entrance. And I saw some images of this, and then it seems like it's getting scrubbed from the internet, because the sentiment toward the coach is very positive. People are saying, well, he was a monk and he had the best interests of the kids. And the families, it seems, of these kids, they're not out to get the coach. They're if anything, they're validating him of, that he was a great leader in this chaotic situation. So, which maybe to some extent he was once the rains came in, but these kids never should have been placed in this set of circumstances, because this warning sign, and he lives there and the kids live there. They know better than this. It's monsoon season. And it's saying, the risk of entering this cave, that these waters can rapidly fill up the cave. Your life is in substantial risk, and yet, like, they just go on. Like, you obviously know that it's monsoon. You're not uninformed. You're not stupid doing this. But what it is it's this rite of passage, and you just ignore that and you go in. And I'm like, oh, so this irritates me. This coach, I mean, he's responsible. I mean, for the death of one person involved in this rescue, one of what the Thai Navy SEALs, and it's just irresponsible, and the risk that he has placed everybody else at for the stupid decision, all tied around this ritual. But the fact that you forego the warning sign, okay, and then the parents validating, that it's more important seemingly to them that their kids had the opportunity for this ritual, and then when this did hit, that this coach managed to get them to safety. That doesn't, that doesn't excuse this, in the fact he was a monk. I mean, they're trying to build this pedigree of this excuse for this guy. And it's like, no, you did. It's the stupid thing. And yes, now the focus has to be on rescuing. But when you get out, I mean, I think the guy should be tried, that this as a criminal offense. I mean, because you would have to use discretion and judgment based upon where that sign was. You're the acting parent of these kids, and you put them knowingly into a very, very dangerous situation, which, I mean, by all means, the fact that they were even found alive was a miracle. But you don't celebrate this guy. You don't do that. I mean, this is just stupid. So a large warning sign at the cave's entrance raises the risk of entering so close to the monsoon season, so signs are. But for many in Thailand, Ekapol, who left his life in the monkhood 3 years ago, joining the Wild Boars, so it's the football team, as an assistant coach soon after, is an almost divine force sent to protect the boys as they go through this ordeal. A widely shared cartoon drawing of Ekapol shows him sitting cross-legged as a monk does in meditation with 12 little wild boars in his arms. That's insane. My God, that's crazy. So I was looking up Thailand, doing a little research. So we have a population where we have a national IQ of 91. So U.S., we're closer to 100. What Japan 108, 91, and actually through the Thailand government, a study coming out in the last year that there's a rapid decline in the IQ of youth that's concerning. This is from the Thai government. So we also know that, once you get below 85 for an IQ, as a society, it's very hard to govern and make good decisions. Very hard to have that level of sophistication that we have like in modern society. And that, IQ takes, hundreds and thousands of years to raise, and can seemingly, you can shave off those IQ points in just a few generations. But so we're dealing also with people. I don't want to make this where I'm the PhD, I'm the safety doc, and I'm smarter than whoever, because I don't want it to come off that way. But you're having people who are seeing this coach as this idol, as this hero, and I'm like, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it, because again, he made the decision after being informed. He made the decision which ultimately compromised the safety of the 12 boys and his own safety, and then led to compromising the safety of the people involved in the rescue. So the first four, we know that they've been getting some boys out of the cave, and just how complicated this is, and this whole process. So, one of the things that'll come out of this is this will serve as a model for future rescues by people hopefully are not in the certain set of circumstance because of knowingly putting themselves there. But so there'll be lessons learned from this, but it is like the experienced cave divers, like the very best, have said this cave is almost impossible to navigate. And you think about them, these people are putting their life on a line. They have families, and they are, again, putting themselves at risk because Ekapol decided this ritual was more important than heeding the warning. And yet the families are saying to the coach, don't worry about it when you come out. We're not mad at you. I'm thinking, and of course, you got to be careful on the information that's shared back and forth. But even the stuff that the kids were sending out, the tone kind of changed on that. Like they were saying what the kids were saying, we don't want to we want some time off of school, or we want fried chicken, and, we want to have this party and this other stuff. And I'm thinking, do you not realize, you still are kids, and it came out later, and this might have been because people are realizing, who were involved in the rescue and all of that, these kids should really be very thankful of their rescuers. That came out in later notes. It wasn't there in the first stuff, though. It was really centric of, hey, when we get out of here, we're going to, do all of these great things and eat all these wonderful foods and whatever. And it's you don't want to freak the kids out and all of that, with how dire the situation really is and how complicated. But I would have just expected more appreciation in these notes versus kind of get us out as fast as we can so we can resume, our lives, which mainly seem to focus on eating. I don't know. It doesn't set well with me. So yeah, who knows where this stuff will go, but I'm not a fan of this coach, and I think it was a horrible decision. Hopefully this will have an okay outcome, an outcome where everybody will be rescued. We won't have additional deaths or injuries. But no, we don't celebrate this guy. That's insane. It's crazy, right? Am I the only one thinking this? And I'm not posting anything to social media, and I haven't seen anybody post anything negative, because I think people get in and realize that the moment they do that, they're going to be targeted and doxxed and things like that, and slammed, because it's all about, no, we've got to put all of that aside, and we just have to pray and all of those types of things. Yes, I get that. But again, we cannot excuse that this was a horrible decision after being informed, and there needs to be consequences from this. So, all right. You can kind of tell where I'm at today, right? The second issue, second event. A woman climbed the base of the Statue of Liberty on the 4th of July to protest migrant family separations. So this was an article, came out of CNN. But in New York, Liberty Island was being evacuated because a person trying to climb the Statue of Liberty, how the hell is this worded? A person trying to climb the Statue of Liberty. I don't know. This is crazy journalism. All right. So anyway, someone was trying to climb the Statue of Liberty. The island was evacuated by the Park Police, NYPD, and they're on scene. Park Service is there. So basically, 16 officers with the New York City Police Department's Emergency Service Unit. It's a team trained to perform some of the most dangerous rescues in the city. They took part in the rescue apprehension effort because you're not supposed to climb the Statue of Liberty. And she's doing this in defiance of the law and to get this message out there. So they're going to rescue her and then also put handcuffs on her and take her to jail. But Officer Brian Glacken said in a news conference Wednesday evening, "At first she wasn't friendly with us, but we took the time to get a rapport with her, so that took a while," said Glacken. "She just kind of mentioned the kids in Texas. I guess the whole debate that's going on about that. In the beginning, she threatened to push us off. Pushed the ladder off, but we stayed with her," Glacken added. Finally, officers with ropes and climbing gear reached her. At first, she was being a little combative. Then she was willing to cooperate with us. She actually apologized to us for having to go up and get her, Glacken told reporters. Officers put a harness and ropes on her to bring her down, and she crossed to the other side of the statue with the officers, where a ladder was propped up on the base of the statue. So this was a complicated rescue because they're saying, the Statue of Liberty is not uniform. I mean, it's got all different curves and waves and angles and things like that. So you're trying to do this rescue where you're kind of rappelling, but where do you put ropes and all of that? It's not like you have a ladder truck in the fire department. You can just pull up and, extend the ladder out and go get her. So she's doing this, puts her own life at risk, but then really she's putting the lives of this rescue unit, the members of that who are participating, who are climbing up to get her, putting them at risk. Again, occupying resources. And this whole, again, just stupid. So, this is the thing. If you want to make a protest, if you getting out a message, then figure out how to do that in a way that you're not going to put other people in harm's way. Okay. Bring your sign, your banner, whatever, and hold it up, or whatever is not going to put you and then others at risk. So, yeah, I just shake my head at that, because, again, another person that doesn't think of the consequence that then gets applied to other people who are coming in to preserve this person's life and actually their ability to communicate First Amendment rights. So it really frustrates me, because this one seemed like it was portrayed in a really positive tone by the media. She's just doing this to bring awareness, and then, the quickly kind of got scrubbed from the news, and even the way that the officer talked about it, really kind of downplayed it. But the reality is, I read a number of articles on this, and it talked about just how complicated this was, and the risk with this, especially when you have somebody that's combative, that they could jeopardize one or more of the rescuers. And, do the rescuers, they could get harmed, could get killed, who knows? But again, to the point of somebody making an informed decision to put themselves at risk, okay, to go against, the go against the post-it warnings, and in doing that, bring others into the mix, and you have all of these extensions with the other people of, spouses and kids and parents and just everybody that is concerned about their lives. And then if something happens to them, you remove them from now being available to help other people, because you've made, I don't know if it's a selfish decision. I don't know what it is, but this was, again, it was stupid to do this. And, you have every right, again, to do a, protest and to, communicate your disagreement with what is going on, but not to do it in a manner where you're putting others in harm's way. So I don't know whatever happened to her. I mean, there was really no follow-up. This just vanished. And then on July 7th, from the Charlotte Observer, maybe there's more than one Observer, but anyway, the newspaper, Charlotte Observer, red no swimming flags were posted on Saturday Saturday in Kill Devil Hills for dangerous rough surf caused by a storm off the North Carolina coast, according to the town. Wow, you have a place called Kill Devil Hills? That just sounds dangerous on its own. Okay. A 62-year-old man swimming in the rough surf disappeared at 12:15 p.m., authorities say. He was seen in the water near 4th Street minutes later, but couldn't get back to shore, according to Dare County Emergency Services and the Ocean Rescue Division of the Kill Devil Hills Fire Department. Takes up a lot of space on the side of a fire truck, right? The Kill Devil's Hills Fire Department. It's a lot of gold leaf lettering right there. The near-shore current was strong on Saturday and moved the swimmer southward, according to a news release from the town. Lifeguards pulled the swimmer from the water moments later near 2nd Street. So he perished. So he died. So you have red no swimming flags. And this happens like all the time. This happens all the time along the coast, where you will have, so the red no swimming flags mean no swimming. it's not safe to even go out, 10, 15 feet. There's rip currents and everything else. My parents were down in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and talk about this phenomena too, of people just ignoring the red no swimming flags and still going out. And it's like, okay, so you do that, you ignore the red no swimming flags, and you're obviously putting your own life at risk. And now you are putting the lives of the responders at risk. The lifeguards, the fire department, county emergency services, all of them you're bringing into this. You're putting them at risk of trying to rescue you. And you shouldn't be out there, right? You shouldn't be out there. And I did a little bit of an internet search on this, and it is so common, whether it be along, the southern shore or the East Coast, of people doing this, the high winds, crazy currents, but the flag systems when they're out there, and it's the no swimming is overtly identified, and people just ignore that. Well, I'm just going to go out a little bit, or they're like, the hell with it. I know what I'm going to do. And I'm experienced, and maybe for someone that doesn't have the experience level I do, or whatever. And these people also, tourists who come down, and you're, from a northern state, and this stuff is all new to you. So it's like, well, I'm only going to go out so far. And I've read a number of those too. People from cold weather states go down and they just ignore these things and get out there, and suddenly someone gets pulled out in a rip current, one or two people, and they perish. And that's hard to find the body too in some of these cases, or bodies. So you have the time, and eventually you have to either call and you say you're not going to search anymore, but you're occupying all of that, plus the grief that goes on with the family. And this really hits hard with the searchers, the people trying to rescue, the fatigue, the cumulative stress that's put on them. I'm a critical incident stress debriefer, and just the longevity of these types of rescues, like the Thai rescue. And thankfully, that is having a positive outcome. So that's, keeping people energized. It's a rescue. It's not a recovery. But in these other cases, where someone gets this Charlotte Observer, July 7th, the 62-year-old guy, off, gets swept out to sea. That just, and, they're able to recover him. But oh my goodness, that just is so much of a horrible impact on the people involved in the rescue. And again, it's one of those things where everyone will say, well, why did this happen? Like, the guy went and there were the red no swing flags. So what was he thinking? Well, he wasn't. Or, it's so self-centered. When people do these, in all three of these cases, these are people who are thinking about themselves, who are ignoring, post-it warnings, and just are not thinking beyond the moment of what are the consequences for myself, and then what are the consequences for the people who are going to come out to attempt to rescue me. And then, we really have, for Thai, the outpouring of resources in Thailand, coming into Thailand. What was it? Elon Musk was even built like a little mini sub that might be used to rescue some of the kids. But everybody, opening up it's like small group theory, actually. It's like where you get the best of the best from all over the world, and they just come in because they're going to contribute their talents to try to do this rescue. And it's really a selfless act. And it represents the best of humanity, but you shouldn't have these things activated because of stupidity. And it's not ignorance. You're not ignorant. You're not ignorant doing any of these things because you're informed. You're not ignorant, but it's stupidity. And it is decision making. And, I don't even think it's taking risk and reward. I don't even see that. It is so selfish to do things like this. So that's, I guess I'm on this kick right now where I'm angry with the way these things are being portrayed. These types of things that, someone just made a bad choice. And now we got to focus on what's going on in the outcome. Okay. I guess right there, I get that, with Thailand, you don't want to get the kids freaked out and all of that. And you want to stay positive in that situation. But, ultimately there needs to be consequences, or this will happen again. And then maybe you could have a situation where, unfortunately, people do end up perishing because, cave fills up with water and they can't get out, or rescue or something happens or whatever. And how many times, again, on the coast and these red flag warnings, and you do an internet search, people drowning off, the coastal areas in the United States. And I've been listening to David Paulides. He has a number of books published, 411 Missing Whatever. Talks about people going into national parks and never coming out, or else they're found weeks, possibly months later. Now he's more into conspiracy theory, and just pointing out some of the very strange occurrences, happenings, inconsistencies in these things. But also in his work, it reveals where, again, people are getting themselves into situations sometimes, like a hiker going off without adequate supplies and then getting lost. And then you have, the whole search team that has to convene and go out and go through dangerous terrain and all of those types of things. Well, again, if you're going to take on that risk, if you're going to be hiking through Yosemite or, whatever, you have to know what you're doing. And that's one of these things where Paulides notes that none of the missing people had, to his knowledge, because I guess it would be registered, but it's about $300. That's basically like a life alert, but it goes to satellites. And you activate it when you're lost or hurt or whatever and need help. And then that activates where, they can triangulate your position quickly and get responders to you. I'm sure there's a big cost associated to that you're probably paying for your own rescue, but you're preserving your life. And he said that's a good thing for just everyone that kind of is an explorer and even veteran, very, versed hikers to have that type of stuff, because you never know what can happen. But again, these things, that's just another extension, as I was going through his stuff, of the frustration I was feeling of people just not acknowledging, that, well, here's the standard if you're going off into whatever, that the basic things that you need to have, and also the amount of water that you need to have, that you need to let somebody know ahead of time where you're going and some of these types of things. I guess maybe I'm coming off like too stern on some of this. And there are things where people just end up getting lost. And it even happens to rescuers, and then they just know to stop moving. But because, that's something you do, right? That's something that we know. If you are hiking and you get lost, you stop. If you're educated, you stop because it's easier for the rescuers to find you. Now, lost person behavior and people panic, they'll look and they'll try to get to the highest point to try to see what's out there and see if they can recognize something that they can go to, a road or something like that. But I I just want to close this out again with saying, don't make decisions, okay? Whether it be, it's a windy day, I'm going to burn my leaves or something like that, and I'll be fine. I've got the hose out here, and you end up burning down half the neighborhood and stuff like that. And just don't make decisions when you are informed that these decisions could have safety consequences which will impact others and bring them into the mix. And then you just think beyond of what's going to happen to them or what could happen to them. So these intentional bad decisions after you've been informed. Again, anything can happen to any of us. I mean, think of the number of car accidents that people get into, a slippery surface that, is on a road, or, the way that the sun hits and someone, is temporarily blinded by the sun or something like that. Deer runs out, whatever, things like that. And just things happen. Okay. But when you intentionally are informed and you make a decision that puts your life at risk, the risk of others that you're responsible for, and, we're talking not like an urgent situation, like, like an active shooter, and you have to make a decision in that moment, like to preserve yourself and maybe the people with you. But we're talking about things like, the Thai cave. They didn't have to go in the cave. I mean, they didn't have to go. The person scaling the Statue of Liberty didn't have to do that. These are all things like you just have a choice to walk away and there'd be no consequence. The person, the 62-year-old guy who sees the 2 red flags of no swim, and just don't swim then, dude. Like, don't go in that day. So frustrated, and also with the media response to this, that these things they aren't getting the hard hammer that I would put down on them. It frankly pisses me off that these things are getting probably more just ignored or accolades. It's just something that happens versus a real deep scrutiny at some level of saying, no, we've brought a lot of people now into the mix, and not including the families of all of these people, but other people into the mix who are going to do their jobs and try to save people. But the risk that we are now putting onto them just gets overlooked. So, hey, everybody, enjoy your summer and the safety doc. When I go out biking, I always bring a extra charger for my phone in case I need to do that. I give my route out. So my wife or someone else would know the route that I'm on, have my safety, my kit packed. So with bandages and all of that, have my identification located in one of the bags on the bike in case, I'm knocked unconscious or something like that. So, just all of those types of things, taking plenty of water, making sure I'm prepared for the ride, recognizing the limitations of my body, like if, and very aware, checking the weather, just those types of things, because again, I be responsible for myself, but then also don't want to do something and make a poor decision after I've been informed, and that would put other people at risk. So, Safety Doc, signing out. Dun, 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 dun.
This has been the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio show host, and leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrotin. Remember to check back each week for the latest, best, and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. You can find Dr. Perodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.